If you have seen the Disney Sparkshort Loop on Disney Plus, then you are in the right place to discuss this film. Hey guys, I'm McGann, and this is the Fangirl, where I'm gonna be discussing autism yet again. I know some people keep telling me to stop, but I'm not gonna! And if you haven't seen Loop yet on Disney Plus, head over there now. It's only about 10 minutes long, and then I'll see you right back! Now, unlike my breakdown on Float, where the child's differences are very metaphorical, Loop is flat out stated to be about autism. There's no, oh, I interpret the movie like this because of that. No, the actual description of Loop says, and I will quote, "This film breaks new ground by featuring Pixar's first nonverbal autistic character." So there is no debate about what we're watching here. For those of you who haven't seen the short at all and aren't going to do it for whatever reason, Loop is about a middle school-esque aged girl, and she's going on a canoe ride with a neurotypical boy. The short showcases repetitive behavior, a real lack of understanding between the two kids, and even frustration, but also a willingness and ability to help her without pushing, and I find that to be very worthwhile to talk about. The autistic character is Renee, who, as described, is nonverbal, only making a few various noises throughout the mini-movie. She gets paired to go on a canoe trip with Marcus because, basically, he woke up late and drew the short straw. Yep, Pixar gets it. People avoid special needs kids like they're contagious. Obviously, Renee is not the canoe partner that Marcus wanted. However, to his credit, Marcus really makes an effort to try and understand Renee. You know, because Renee really can't reach halfway across to meet Marcus in the communication process. She's much farther back in how she communicates, which means Marcus has to reach even farther to be able to coexist nicely with Renee and communicate with her as effectively as possible. And he does, he really tries. Marcus even has the great idea of, hey, you know that ringtone sound that you love playing over and over again? Well, let me take you to a tunnel where it would echo! He is so genuinely trying to be nice to Renee and show her a platonically good time. However, when we see things from Renee's point of view, it's a totally different world. Lights look different, sounds don't hit her ear the same way it hits ours. Even the sensation of touch is much more intense for Renee. And all of that type of sensory overload is very common for autistic children. But also keep in mind that autism is a very diverse spectrum, so no two kids are ever gonna perfectly check the same boxes. But even though Marcus took Renee to the tunnel with really pure good intentions, Renee gets sensory overload and she has a meltdown, which causes her to crash the canoe. Okay, no big deal, right? You just put the canoe back in the water and then you head back to camp. Except meltdowns don't just turn on and off like a light switch. A meltdown is not a tantrum where Renee is throwing a fit because she didn't like something or didn't get her way. It's that her entire body just rejected its environment and she doesn't know how to normalize again. So her entire world is haywire and she has to really sit down and figure out how to re-center herself. So at first, Renee copes by hiding underneath the boat that's now on land, and Marcus has the good sense not to mess with her while she's hiding. Honestly, if Marcus had pushed to get Renee back out on the water before she was ready, it would have caused her to exacerbate her issues. She would have probably spiraled. It would have gotten a lot worse. But Marcus just waits because he's a smart lad who obviously knows to leave a woman alone when she's upset. And then eventually Renee starts creeping out from under the boat. Then she's only partially covered. Then she has recentered herself well enough that she is ready and willing to go back to camp. If you guys never listen to another thing I say, please do not misunderstand that Renee is not being a brat in this short film. She isn't doing any of her behaviors on purpose or because she wants something or she's just very controlling. That's not what's happening. Renee isn't mute because it's fun or because she went through some traumatic event. It's part of who she is. Renee's real issue is that the world she sees is not the world the rest of us see. Just imagine trying to go through each day and it feels like your senses are attacking you you, but your senses don't turn off, so what can you do? Nothing other than try to cope and deal with it the best way you can. Then imagine being told you have to do this stressful activity right this very second while the world is spinning in front of you and you're already panicking. So there we have issue 1, issue 2, and then on top of that, let's stack the fact that Renee can't communicate with people in ways that they understand. And as awkward as that is, as a tween teen that Renee is, imagine that when she was a little girl. She couldn't just walk up in kindergarten and go, oh, I like your shoes, oh, I like your hair, oh, can we be friends? Can we play? Can we sit together? None of that. So take a guess at how easy it is for her to make friends. Truly, making friends is so easy for so many people that we take for granted how difficult that can be for so many autistic people. Someone has to look through these behaviors that they might find strange or unusual and say the person underneath is worth the effort. That human being is worthwhile to maybe fight to have a friendship with at first. And people who are willing to bridge those kind of gaps and sort of reach the extra way to say, hey, I would like to be your friend, they aren't very common. And honestly, I wonder about Renee's parents too, because so many things at camp seem like they would be a really hard struggle for her. And it doesn't look like that camp has any kind of special needs program, especially since they said Renee normally rides with the camp counselor in the canoe, which kind of makes it sound like she's the one and only person with special needs at the whole place. And I know that a camp legally can't reject somebody for having disabilities, although bitter side note, Girl Scout troops totally will. But I am really curious why Renee's parents chose that summer camp, or even camp in general, over another activity. I am very open to feedback on that why, because to me, as a parent, I just kind of look at Renee being all by herself. That's an issue with isolation, with bullying, with a lot of mistreatment problems, and I really wouldn't want to put my child in a position where I would have to worry if they're going to be abused. But it's really hard to say. I mean, maybe Renee begs to go to camp every year and she actually flourishes there 99% of the time. So I guess I'll only keep up one judgmentally raised eyebrow at her parents. And I'd also like to discuss how Loop is just a little bit uncomfortable. The short really caught me off guard because when I first heard about the premise, I didn't expect the kids to be so old or for the girl to be nonverbal. And when I heard the noises that Renee would make or the way that she would hold her face, I mean, my gut reaction was to tense up. And it's not even like I found her disgusting, but it was just so outside the norm of what I'm used to seeing that it really took me aback. We're designed as people to use all of our senses to gather feedback about the environment around us and how to react. So when you see something that just seems off or just way different from what you're usually seeing, it makes you feel like something is wrong, or you don't know what that person is going to do, or that even, maybe they're injured. And that creates a huge sense of uneasiness for a lot of people. So I get that. I understand that. Now, personally, after about a minute, my brain kind of caught up with what was going on, and so it didn't bother me as much. But I'm also speaking as somebody who is used to being around autistic people all day. So even for somebody who is trying to understand and embrace autism and not see it as a negative thing, my reaction to an autistic child was not immediately positive. And I really debated over whether or not to even discuss this part in this video, but you know what? It's okay that I had that response. We are all completely allowed to be human, and whatever internal response you have, it's valid. How you feel isn't wrong. People are always going to see those that are different, and they're going to be put off or curious or even afraid. But the real important thing is whether or not your initial response can change. So is that first, maybe shocking impression all you'll ever see of a person? Or will you try to look deeper and see the world and that person's life from their point of view? Are you strong enough to choose kind even if your first response maybe isn't kindness? Or are you going to be one of those parents who invites every kid in the class except the special needs child? Hint, don't be that douchebag that leaves a kid out. Make a phone call to the parents if you have concerns about safety or ability or whatever else. But Don't just be like, no wheelchairs, no autistics, no lemurs. Lemurs? What? Where did I go to lemurs? That doesn't even make sense in or out of context. What? I guess that was for the one really progressive school in California where they let lemurs in the classroom. His family are migrant workers. They're in town for the zoo because of flea season. I don't know, do lemurs even eat fleas? I don't know, I'm off on a wrong tangent. Back to business. A lot of people want nothing to do with the special needs community, and that's really sad. But you can't and shouldn't try to control someone else's reactions. For example, if you're the parent who wants to push your kid to do play dates with special needs children, I mean, that's great up until a point. But if the two kids really aren't getting along and they're not meshing, just trying to keep forcing them together is probably going to cause a lot of issues. The children really have to get this mutual kind of connection where they want to reach across the table and be each other's friends. And it's great to teach your children to be open, but again, don't force it because that can lead to situations of abuse, unhappiness, all kinds of icky stuff. But there tends to be an unfortunate trend with many autistic people where the older they get, the more their differences are very noticeable compared to their peers, and the harder it is for them to make any kind of friends. Sometimes that isolation gets justified because, oh, the autistic kid freaks out, or they don't even seem to acknowledge the other person in the room. You know, whatever people can say to dehumanize someone else. But that's not typically the case, and most autistic people do like company even if they don't respond in ways that you would expect. It all really boils down to how far another person is willing to go, which is why I thought Loop was really well done. Renee couldn't just say, no, I don't like what's going on, this is making me panicky, I don't like this echo, Marcus, can we stop this? She didn't have the ability to speak to him like that, but she was communicating, and because Marcus was willing to put in the extra effort, he could understand it. I mean, Marcus really didn't like being paired with Renee initially, and maybe by the time he gets back to camp, he's gonna like how his day went even less. And I really wonder if Marcus is gonna wake up extra early every day for the rest of camp to avoid Renee, or if he's gonna be more empathetic and seek her out and try to keep being her friend. And in all honesty, that trip was very stressful on Renee, and it had to have been very stressful on Marcus too. He'd probably never worked with an autistic person before, he had no idea what he was doing, he had no training, he had no idea what was going on, and he still had the emotional intelligence to do the best he could for Renee. So at least while he was there, he really tried, and that's the most we could ask of anybody. And I'm also really happy for Renee because she could figure out what she needed to recenter her world and get back out on the water. She couldn't just change her feelings on a dime, but she knew how to regulate herself overall. A ton of neurotypical people can't even manage that. So to every pixel that made up Renee, you did good, kid. Derp time! So it's April now, which a lot of you know is dubbed as Autism Awareness Month. Don't know who out there isn't aware of autism. I think we can jump to the next stages of maybe tolerance, acceptance, things like that. But for our post-video derp show, I kind of want to be more serious today and teach you some of the things that I feel are important to share about autism. Now, I'm not an authority on autism. I have said things the improper way quite a few times over quite a few videos, but I'm always trying to learn, and as a lot of you know, I live with autism in the house every day, so I care about this. I just don't always have the right terminology, or at least I haven't experienced or understood to use the right terminology. So some tidbits for you guys as we are marching through April. Do not say person with autism. Usually we'll say something like that when it's not a good thing, like person with cancer. And I'll be the first to admit that it sounds almost nicer and softer and kinder when it hits your ear to say a person with autism. You know, like you would come up to a hospital and go, oh, this is a person with cancer. Whereas if you say, oh, there's an autistic person, it sounds very almost brash and accusatory. And if you agree with me that it does sound harsher to say autistic person, it's probably because you've been thinking about autism in not great ways. But it's okay because you're here to learn, and if I can learn and I'm an old lady here, you can learn too. So instead, I would challenge you to think of it more like someone born in Spain would be a Spanish person. Someone born with autism would be an autistic person. It might sound harsher because we feel like autism is a delicate subject or word, but for people in the autistic community, that's their preference, is to put autism, or actually autistic, before person, individual, whatever. My understanding is also things like saying Aspie instead of Asperger's is not generally smiled upon. Tidbit number 2. The puzzle pieces seem to overwhelmingly be offensive to the autistic community. Autistic people really, they don't want to be figured out. They're not your problem to solve. They're not your toy to play with. It's like how Princess Bubblegum once put it. People are just built different. You don't have to understand it, you just have to accept it. So instead, use a rainbow infinity symbol to be pro-neurodiversity and help spread autistic appreciation or autistic acceptance. We don't need autism awareness because we've all heard about it, mostly negative or wrong things. And if you don't know, being neurodiverse just means that your brain doesn't work like the average Joe. That's not necessarily good or bad, it's just different. Tidbit number 3. Autism Speaks is not autism friendly. I made this mistake myself the first time, maybe even more than once, that I spoke about autism in a video. I was not vlogging with my face back then. I was just pulling all the autism pictures I could find, and I was using puzzle pieces in Autism Speaks, and people would come and tell me things and, oh no, don't use that. And it wasn't even that anybody was coming at me in a mean way, but I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, people are upset about anything these days. It doesn't even matter. Anything they'll be mad about. And I dismissed it, and there's probably people watching this who can say the same thing, that they heard the complaints and just dismiss them as, well, people will complain about anything. But Autism Speaks is not autism friendly. They want to find a cure for autism, which how you cure the way you're born is beyond me. It'd be like curing the gays, which churches tried and failed at. It's not possible. Plus, a cure suggests that autism is one size fits all, which I've already covered several times in this video. It is not. It's not possible. But Autism Speaks uses the puzzle piece, which is another reason it's very taboo among autistic individuals. But they also have some really horrendous, offensive marketing materials where they call autism like, oh, this monster that's going to attack your children at night and destroy your marriage. That's literally a commercial they did. Feel free to do your own research, but the more I have learned about Autism Speaks and their fear-mongering tactics, the more I'm just absolutely disgusted by that company. Their goal is to make you horrified of autism so that you'll give them money, and they do not let any autistic people give them feedback. There's none on the board. They don't consult with any. They're voiceless. They don't care. They want the autistics to shut up and be fixed. That's not how it works. Tidbit number 4 is a great one, and I don't know the artist. I'm going to try to find it, but probably not be successful. But I found these infographics, and they sum up autism spectrum disorder very well. We like to think of a spectrum as a straight line, and we have point A, point B, and a bunch of options in between, but that's not how it works with autism. Autism is more like every section on the line is a category, and every category can have different levels. So where we think autism is like more or less or higher or lower functioning, it's really a lot more of an amalgamation of everything. And finally, because of how Renee is portrayed in this film, let's talk about function labeling. Neurotypicals, lean in here. I have spoken to many folks about Loop and kind of got feedback on what they thought of Renee, what they thought of the short, what they thought was going on. And the automatic response from most people was to describe Renee as low functioning. And I have to admit, a few years ago, I'd be right there with you because I didn't know any better. So let me attempt to make this make sense. Again, there is no one size fits all for autism. There's also no right or wrong way to have autism, and you can't wrap the diagnosis up in a nice little bow. And like I showed you in tidbit number 4, I mean, the spectrum of autism is not, are you really autistic or just a tiny bit autistic? It's all kinds of different categories and ranges. So you might might be really, really good at dressing yourself and really, really bad with eye contact. There's so many different sums and possibilities for how you can be, and there's no wrong answer. The whole reason for a functioning label is so that schools and other government associations can say, oh, you're high functioning, so you don't deserve any help, or oh, you're low functioning, so you can't do anything for yourself. It's very dismissive, and it removes a lot of the humanity for an autistic person. No, my battery died. Really, labels like high functioning and low functioning are used by schools or the government to be very dismissive of people. Oh, you're low functioning, so you need to be completely taken care of and infantilized. Or, oh, you're high functioning, so you don't deserve any help at all. It takes the individualism out of autism. And I know it's something I really had to work and rewire my brain to not want to impulsively say high or low functioning. So I totally feel you if that is a difficult change for you, but I assure you, it is a much better thing to look at someone as a whole and an individual person rather than lump them into a label. So if you see somebody and they're nonverbal, say they're nonverbal. That doesn't mean they're low functioning. They could be nonverbal and incredibly intelligent, or they could be really average and they just don't talk. I mean, it's not like it's out of the question to see people as individuals. Likewise, if they have a sensory disorder, again, that's not low functioning. That's, hey, they have a sensory disorder. If you know an autistic person and they're difficult as all heck to deal with, you can say that too. But trying to be fair and accurate with how you describe somebody is not the same as saying, oh, those issues don't exist. In my opinion, after all the things I've tried to learn and take in, it is more important to see the whole person as an individual rather than rubber stamp them A or B. And I really do want to give a big heart thank you, shout out to all the autistic people that I've spoken to over the days, weeks, months, years now, because there is such a willingness to just point blank educate people if they're looking for the information. And it's not like other things where, you know, if you try to talk politics with somebody who's neurotypical and it turns into some big spiral of, I hate you, get out of my house, you commie, blah, blah, what, something crazy like that. We've all been to Thanksgiving dinner. We know how it works. The autistic community is so overwhelmingly just positive and caring, and they're really passionate to be able to explain how their world is. So don't go listen to Autism Speaks. Don't go listen to a post from Aunt Janie who has never met an autistic person in her life. Actually seek out autistic voices and hear what they have to say, because they are really not only interesting people, but very good, kind, caring people for the most part of what I've met. And you know, when my kids got a diagnosis, I could have curled up in a ball and cried and said it's the worst thing ever and it's doomed our lives and destroyed us all, but I didn't really see it that way. I didn't want to see it that way. I didn't want to see like, oh, let's find us a cure kind of mentality. Just sort of, what is this? How can I support it? What can I do better? And if that is something that you have the opportunity to do, hopefully in the comments we'll have some educators in here probably pointing out all the things I did wrong. And I will say it took me a little bit to not take it personally when it gets very blunt, or there's a correcting going on or an education going on, that it's not a personal attack, it's how that person communicates. But if you can have the privilege of making a good autistic friend, they are amazing to have. So thank you guys for watching. I know the derps end of this video was probably longer than the actual video, and this whole thing is way longer than the loop short itself. But I felt like it was important to say there is so much going out there right now with April and Autism Speaks and puzzle pieces and all that, and it's frustrating, because even if I try to speak up and say, oh, no, wait, you might not want to be posting that, and be very gentle and try to explain and educate, and this is why you might not want to use that, this is very offensive to a lot of people, I get met with so much rage and hostility from people who don't even know a single person that is autistic. So this planet is baffling, and the world of these special needs individuals seems to be one of the last places where it's okay to discriminate. And so if I can do any little bit to help clear anything up for anybody, I'm glad to do it. I hope I've opened a few eyes and at least caused a few people to go, oh, I'm not going to donate to Autism Speaks when I'm checking out at this store who's supporting them. But thank you, my dear family members, for watching this entire thing. Leave me a comment if you made it this far, because I'll be impressed. And I will see you guys in the next video. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.